Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. My name is Katie and this is the stress-free place to keep you grooving and improving on your musical journey. I think we can all agree that strumming is great, but there's just something beautiful about fingerpicking. Oh, but where do you start? Today I'm going to teach you some essential fingerpicking patterns that you could use for just about any song in 4/4 to create instant magic, and I'm going to teach you 2 essential secrets to fingerpicking. Thank you to NU Music for sponsoring this video, and let's get started. For the first pattern on open strings, because we're taking things one step at a time, my thumb is going to be plucking the C string, and then my index and my middle will pluck the A and the E strings at the same time, like that. So I have thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. So you'll see in the pattern over here, it is one measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Let's practice that to a metronome so that you can get used to it before you add any chords. Here it is. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. Fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. Now let's add the chording hand. We're going to find a C chord, which is going to be the 3rd fret of the 1st string. So I have 1, 2, 3, spaces over, and then I strum all of my strings with my chording hand using my ring finger holding that 3rd fret of the A string. That's my C chord. All right, so if I strum, that's what it sounds like. If I pick it on this finger picking pattern, it will sound like this. Thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. Which brings me to secret number 1. So secret number 1 is, as long as I hold my chording hand down and I let the finger picking do the work, I'm just going to let my finger picking hand do the work. As long as you put it together with the pattern, pluck it in time, and you hold your fingers in the chords, you create this finger picking pattern. It sounds like you're doing something really complicated. You're creating instant magic. It's magic. Let's go back to exercise number 1. We have the C chord. Now transitioning to the F chord. Finger number 1 is going to be placed on the 1st fret of that E string, and finger number 2 on the 2nd fret of the G string. And I'm going to pluck the same pattern. Thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. And then I have G7. I'm going to leave finger number 1 where it is. Finger number 2 is going to go string 1 closer to my toes to the 2nd fret of the E string. And now I'm going to place finger number 3 on the 2nd fret of the A string for a G7. I'm going to pluck the same finger picking pattern. Thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. Now I'm going to slide over to the C. Slide over to the 3rd fret. You see how it's on the same string, A string, now it's on the 2nd fret. Slide over to the 3rd fret. There's our C. Thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers. Let's try that exercise with the metronome. 2 and 3 and 4 and let's try it together. C chord. Thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb. F. G7. C chord. Two, 3, 4. Now, that brings me to secret number 2. Some of you may be thinking, wait a minute, Katie, why are you holding the entire F chord? You're only plucking strings 1, 2, and 3. You're not using this one. Why not just let it go? I mean, do you really need that? I say yes, because let's say that you have a rogue finger, a rogue thumb. What happens if you go? You accidentally pluck this G string when you didn't really mean to, or if it's pluck it out of order, out of time, something happens. If you hold your fingers in the entire chord and then you have a rogue finger and you accidentally pluck a string that you didn't mean to pluck, you are in the safe zone. Because if you don't have it there and you're supposed to play an F chord, it may sound funky and not in a good way. And so I always hold this here in the full chord as a safeguard. 1 and 2, it's just within my muscle memory. So you really can't lose with secret number 2. The next finger picking. What's a pixing? The next finger picking exercise is actually the opposite of the first finger picking exercise. So you see that it's all on open strings. It's going to be the reverse. Fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb. So let's try that on open strings. Here we go. Fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb. Let's try pattern number 2, the opposite of pattern number 1, on open strings. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb. Let's put it together now with some chords. We're going to use the same C, F, G7, and C order that we had done for exercise 1. So let's try that together. We have C chord, and we have 1 finger picking pattern on fingers, thumb. Let's try that together. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, F, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, G7, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, C chord, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, strum. 2, 3, 4. Now let's practice that with a metronome. That exercise is next. 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, fingers, thumb, F, G7, C, 2, 3, 4. The next finger picking pattern is going to now involve all 4 strings. So it will be essential that you hold the entire chord because you're going to be using all 4 strings. You could use this with a high G ukulele. I am using mine with a low G, and so it's going to sound just maybe slightly different than yours if you have a high G, but it's still going to sound pretty cool. This pattern is what I call the every other because we're going to be plucking every other string. So it's thumb, index, thumb, middle, every other, every other, every other, every other. So this is different because you're not plucking 2 strings at the same time. It's every other, but it creates a really great low to high progression. Sounds like bells almost when you speed it up. Okay, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and every other, every other, every other, every other. Now we're going to add our 3 chords that we have used for the previous exercises. We have the finger picking pattern on a C chord, every other, every other. Now switch to the F chord, every other, every other. Now G7, every other, every other. Now C chord, every other, every other. Then hold a C chord. Now you can play along to the metronome, which is next. 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and every other, 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 every other. Hold. 2, 3, 4. The next pattern is a great pattern to really spice things up a bit because it sounds really complicated, but once you break it down, it's actually quite simple, but sounds like instant magic. So first my thumb and my middle finger, they're going to pluck the A and the G strings together. Then my thumb will pluck the G string. My index will pluck the E string. My thumb is going to now move down to the C string. And then my middle finger will pluck the A string. Then my thumb will move back to the G string. And then my index finger back to the E string. Let's try that with the metronome. That's next. Let's try the last exercise on just open strings. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 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 to the last pattern. We have a C chord for a measure, an F chord for a measure, a G7 for a measure, and then slide over to that C. Let's try that. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and F, 2, and 3, and 4, G7, C chord, Now that you have 4 finger picking patterns, the ball is in your court, why don't you take a simple song and then add one of these finger picking patterns just to see which one fits best. You may find that one fits better than the other, but this is where the experimentation comes in, and then you can add your own flavor to some old songs that you just want to breathe some new life into them. If you want a finger picking series, I'm going to leave that over here, and it's 15 days of finger picking. If you're looking for what's the next step, the next challenge, I'm going to leave that over here. I'm excited for you to create some instant magic, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.